I'm Mark Cooksey. My email address there is mcooksey6@gmail.com. If you want to keep up with me, I'd love to hear from you. So one of the techniques we're going to talk about today for getting consent, I call it consensus. I learned this from GE. I was a refrigerator designer for 20 years at GE, and then moved over to healthcare about 13 years ago, and in this role about 5 years ago. So I'm the ISO 1345 quality leader for Norton Healthcare. But we'll do this thing called fist to 5. And it's a way of, it's neat to see my techs do this in meetings with me because they're getting it. So fist means we have no problems in our organization. 5 means we got problems. And the way it works is, and you can use 1, 2, 3, use this finger please, 2, 3, 4, 5, anywhere between this. So I want to get a flash. It's kind of like a survey. I'll ask you the question. My organization has problems, lots of problems or no problems. So just let me see how it works. Got some 2s, 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 4s, okay, 2s. Okay, so the way you use that, if someone did this, I would say, why did you say no problems? And you could, talk about that. So you were a 4, so why did you rate it a 4? Okay, hospitals losing money, right? And so for those of you that gave it a 2, which is pretty generous actually, why did you say 2? Okay. Okay, so what he said was third-party vendors challenging, and then the buy-in with leadership. Did I say that correctly? I'll pick another one. So how about you in the front here? Same common problem. So that's how this works. You see how that works? It's a better way of gauging your team than who agrees and who disagrees. Yes or no, because that's binary. Because if you disagree with something, you're always on the other side, right? So fist to 5 is a great tool. If you take nothing else from this presentation today, fist to 5 is a great tool. So you always ask a question, and it's a way of gauging level of agreement. And it's okay if someone does this. I'll give you an example. So at GE, we were looking at an alternate refrigerant, and it was super efficient and very inexpensive. So we did fist to 5, let's do this. And this one guy was like defiant. And so I said, well, what's the problem, sir? He says, well, you realize that that's explosive. It's flammable. I said, well, that's probably why you did that. So people like that will help protect you when you use that technique. So let's go on with that. A little bit about Norton Healthcare. We are the largest provider there in the Louisville, Southern Indiana region, the Ohio River area. This slide's a little outdated. We have about 19,000 employees now. And at the time I made this slide a few years ago, we had 5 hospitals. Now we're up to 9, including we're building a brand new one in the underserved section of the town, which is West Louisville, which is an area that's pretty much it's been abandoned a lot. So there's an underserved market, we call that. And so we are ISO 1345 certified since 2021. And it can be done. And the tall gentleman in the back is Scott Skinner. He was the one that hired me to take this challenge on because he felt like, someone was asking about right to repair earlier. And I think this supports right to repair. We're holding ourselves to the same standard that our suppliers are held to. So we chose that, and Norton Healthcare chose to be 9001 certified, another ISO standard for the entire company. So today, this is going to be the tech's point of view. This is the benefit of the technicians because they're the front line and they're the ones that are feeling the brunt of the frustration of when things don't work right in the organization. And it can be something as simple as dealing with poor third-party suppliers. I think that's a common problem. It could also be just how do you communicate up the chain to management the real issues, right? So what Norton has, and I'm sure your organization has this as well, is every year we set goals at the corporate level, and then they cascade them down to the department levels and ultimately down to the individual, which is kind of unique because I don't think I've ever had a company that actually made you write your goals down and you had to demonstrate how it linked all the way up the chain to the corporate levels. The CE quality, we're talking about the clinical engineering quality improvement team. So to support the quality goals, we actually have quality teams, and it's a rotational assignment. So we sit down each year and pick different cross-functional team members, and you rotate off every year. So this is one of the things that I think we've just started doing, and it seems to be pretty well received. I'll talk about some case studies of these tech-led quality projects. 5S tool crash carts. We did an entire, 5S is a Japanese technique about organizing your shop and so on. So I'll talk a little bit more about what that means. And then accessories management. Has everyone seen the kiosk that has the gifts in them? The little, you put your ticket in and you get the gifts out. I haven't done that yet. Did anyone get a good prize yet, or is it candy? It's candy. Oh, okay. Anyway, I'd not seen that before, but we did something kind of similar. Only we did. It's not high tech. It's very low tech. But what's more important is how we got the entire hospital stakeholders involved to support this. So I'm excited to share that with you in a minute. Okay, so for those that don't know ISO 1345, to break it down, it's basically 4 clauses. So the first one is, the quality manual itself. 5.0 talks about management responsibility, and you define how you have management reviews, what the manager's role is, and so forth. 6.0 is just human resources stuff. So it's stuff about training and that kind of thing. Clause 7 is about your service and product. If you're a producer or a manufacturer, how you manufacture your product. But we're a servicing organization, so it's all about how we manage the servicing of medical devices. And then kind of where I came in is with the continuous improvement or quality improvement under Clause 8. I'm a certified master black belt instructor, and that's just a designation of someone who's been through the rigor of Lean Six Sigma. And I've been doing that kind of thing for probably about 30 years now. So on top of all that, we also have Norton Healthcare. We went from Joint Commission to DNVGL as our accrediting body, and they're 9001 organized. So the corporation decided to reorganize its structure, its quality management structure, to align with 9001. And so we've aligned ours to fit under this umbrella with Norton Corporate. Okay. All right, so let me move over here where I can see a little bit better. Sorry about that. So the way the cascading goals works is at the corporate level, it says what are the annual goals each year, and we have 4 tenets: staying in the Norton family, reaching for zero defects, 0 complications, that kind of thing, creating great human interaction. So we're being held to the same accountability as we hold our patients, with our patient interactions. So our customers are internal, right, to the hospitals. And then achieving operational improvements. So those 4 components, every organization within Norton Healthcare is held to that. And then the way that works is they'll say, here's the goals for this year that support those. And then we're part of the IS department. So the IS converts those goals to their goals, and then down to us for clinical engineering. So these are the departmental goals. And then on down is the staff. So each member in our HR system, you have a section that you reviewed every year. And your boss says, well, here's how well you did supporting the department goals, which supports IS, which supports Norton Healthcare at the highest level. It's a pretty slick way they've done that. Do you have something like that in your organization, that kind of cascading goals? All right. Have you all ever had a problem with a great idea that didn't go anywhere? Has anyone ever tried to implement a project or improvement that just fell flat? You want to share your example? Okay. Okay. So you're trying to come up with a way of anticipating when to replace them? Oh, okay. To stop losing them. Gotcha. So it's a cost control measure, basically. Okay. All right. So why do you think that's not working? You said they just don't see the importance of it? Right. Okay. Okay, so this is a concept that I created probably a dozen years ago for Norton, because we were encountering the same problems. We were doing process improvement in the ERs, flow, and all that kind of stuff, getting the same kind of resistance. So it has to, I call it the ear model, which is kind of nice because we're given 2 ears and 1 mouth. So ear to me means it's got to be effective. It's got to work. Okay, so it makes sense, and then you've got the voice of all the people that touch it. So in your case, maybe all the stakeholders haven't been included, or maybe they don't know what their role is. So, or they don't see the benefit of it, right? That's really the first part. The next part, this is probably the most important part, is what I call acceptance. And that means that there's buy-in at all levels, shop all the way to the top leadership. That's an important part, and we often overlook that, right? So that's why I shared with you that fist to five. That's a great technique. It's kind of goofy when you first do it, and it feels kind of awkward. But then I got some real validation today when there was a issue came up in the shop, and someone said, "Okay, we're going to fist to five this one because it's kind of important, right?" It's an important tool to use. And then a lot of times we don't do it with any rigor. We sort of shoehorn it in and hope for the best. So where I come in with a lot of the rigor is the Six Sigma process. It's much more rigorous about, starting with what's the problem, defining what the problem is, getting your team on board, mapping the process, and having a structure about how you want to launch it, and make sure that everyone's involved in that process. So that rigor is very, very important. And then also not just implementing the project, but also how do you monitor it, make sure it doesn't go off the rails. Okay. Any questions on that? So that's the ear model. This was new to our team when they didn't understand this at first either. So I've seen that look before. So it's an important part. You want to make sure it works. You make sure that everyone's on board or in the boat. I say, what would it take to get you in the boat? So again, using an example of fist to five. For those of you who didn't hear it earlier, fist to five is a way of gauging acceptance. So fist means I'm not in the boat. Five means I'm in the boat paddling. So when I ask people, what do you think about this? And you make the entire group do all at once, and then you sort of say, well, why did you say fist? What would it take to get you in the boat? That's how I use that technique. Okay, some best practices. First of all, like I said, include your stakeholders, your sponsors. It's important to have a sponsor, someone who's going to go to the mat for you and break down those barriers, subject matter experts or SMEs. And then this idea of customers. We have lots of customers. We have end users, our patients, the nurses, staff. We also have customers, which are the leadership teams often. Okay, so make sure that you've got them involved. If you don't, then you're going to be pushing a rock uphill, very difficult. Stay engaged. This is an important technique I'll share with you is anyone on a committee, a forever committee in your department? We tend to have those at Norton. And what happens is everyone shows up and then you start to see, it's kind of like that show Survivor. And it starts to whittle down to a core few that really don't know why they're here. So what we try to do is break up the launch of improvement projects in short bursts. So we'll have maybe 2 or 3 meetings and break up the effort that way. And we say, look, we're only going to take 3 meetings to do this. And people are more likely to stay involved if you can do it that way. We use long lunches if it's a new project. In fact, our quality improvement teams, we have monthly meetings and we feed them. And the participation goes way up when they start smelling the Panera or see the bags. They say, "Oh, that's right, I'll be there." It's worth it. And like I said, break your improvements out into phases. So in the parlance of Six Sigma, they have these phases. It spells DMAIC, but it basically defines what is it you're trying to fix, what's the current state of it. We measure it, then we analyze it, use some basic statistical tools, and then brainstorm with some improvement techniques, which I'll share in a minute. And then once you've done that, you hand it over to someone to make sure that they control it. So if you'd like to find out more about what DMAIC's all about, shoot me an email. I'll tell you some more and give you some information about that as well. All right, share success. This is a great thing. All these projects I'm going to share with you, we shared the success with other departments, and that motivated them to try that with their own department. So I can't stress that enough. So share your successes. Straightforward. Okay. All right. Do you all do any kind of offsite meetings? Take your teams offsite? I was asked, when I started the job, my manager said, hey, we don't know all these quality tools you're talking about. Can you create an offsite session for the leadership team? And it was so successful, he said, we should do this for everybody. So we've just started a tradition now where we do an offsite. There's a camp 20 miles from where the hospital is, and we got to throw axes. Nothing says togetherness like throwing axes at each other, not at each other, but but the point is that we have 2 major groups. We have the imaging group and the biomed group, and they very rarely get to talk to each other. So on purpose, we take the team, divide it in 2, and we have multiple sessions. and we share with them what's going on with the department. We share with them what's going on at the department level, IS level, and even the Norton corporate level. And what you see here is them trying out some of these new process improvement techniques. So you see the guy with the flip chart. So I always bring flip charts, and they make fun of me because in my office I have sticky notes all over my walls because I'm constantly trying new ideas. And they say, when you're gone, we're going to take all your sticky notes and rearrange them and really mess with your life. But I'll take it. It's kind of fun. So yeah, I would highly, if you haven't done it, we get a lot of benefit from it because it's worth the investment to go off site, even for a day. And then during that session, I always have open-ended questions, and open-ended questions are great. So I'll give you one that I really like. What's the best deal you ever got? And so I give people the sticky notes, and I say, and they write down what their best deal is, and I put them on a wall, and I start grouping them. And I start to find out, when you ask that simple question, we have a lot in common. So in our department, we have people that have bought a house and made a killing on it, fixed up cars. It's always interesting to hear what their success story is. So I really like the open-ended question like that. What's the best deal you ever got? And then I say, I forgot what the other one was. Well, it's usually this one. So what are 3 things that we can do to make things better in clinical engineering? And you see them writing really feverishly on those sticky notes. And I say, put one idea per card. So, because there's a lot of ideas, we want to start to group them together. So that's what we do during our offsite. We brainstorm the ideas, and you see all the sticky notes there. And you can see we've got them grouped by, common areas, and I try to consolidate them. And then we do, after we've done that, we do what's called multi-voting. Have you ever done multi-voting? Anyone done that? This is another technique I learned from GE. So once you've got all these ideas, you've got to get them down to 1 or 2 or 10 or whatever, something manageable, right? So what I do is I give everyone a marker, and I say, okay, you get 5 votes. So it's like you're in Chicago, so you can vote multiple times. You put your votes on one card or spread it out. And what happens is you start to get a consensus of which projects that we're going to work on. Okay, so multi-vote's a great technique. It's a great physical activity because people are getting out of their chairs and they're going up to the wall and they're marking their markers. And I always tell them, vertical lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. That makes the tallying a lot easier. I always make a joke about that, but that's how you get people engaged. And they seem to like that. And so then after the sessions, we compile the list, and then we send a list out to the entire team, and then we say, now do multi-voting again, because we had 2 sessions. We want to make sure we get a consensus as to which projects we're going to work on. And then the director and I sit down and have you ever done a 4-block matrix like this? This is another GE holdover. I really like it. So let me kind of explain that. So on a flip chart or on a wall, you've got impact or effort. And so what you want to do is don't waste your time on things that are going to be low impact, right? You want to stay on things that are going to be high impact and low effort, okay? A lot of times we spend our time on high impact, high efforts, which take forever. But like your project, that seems to me like that's probably a star. It doesn't take a lot of effort, right? Compared to other things that you would want to do. Does that make sense? And you certainly don't want to waste your time on things that are going to take a lot of effort and don't give you any return on your dollar or your effort, okay? So, and it's very subjective. So we'll take the ideas off, and I'll make a grid, and I'll say, take this idea, or I tell them, or ask them rather, so this idea, let's say we want to paint the bathrooms green. Is this going to be a high or low impact? And usually it's a low impact. So it's okay, it's over here. Is that going to be a high or low effort? Well, that's probably going to be a high effort, relatively speaking. So it gives you a chance just to winnow down the ideas down to a vital few. Okay, so multi-vote here, and then the 4-block is another highly effective tool, simple tool that you can use to get from all these ideas that people have in their brains down to a handful. All right, and then once we've done that, then we have a spreadsheet, and that becomes our list of things we're going to work on with our quality team. So we have a team of 7 people, and I think I've got that on the next slide here. Yeah. So our mission on the goals team is to develop, refine, test, build the buy-in, and implement quality improvement solutions. So that's our mission. And you're on the team for a year. And what I found is if you get too big, then it gets too unwieldy. 7 people is about all you really want. You want to be nimble, and they're the representative for the greater organization. So we have about 55 employees in our department. So these 7 or 8 people sort of help guide the team on some of these ideas. So the sponsor is the director. He pays for lunch. I'm the coach, so I'm there regardless, but the other folks will rotate out. So we have our BMETs from different hospital locations, and then we have representative from IS Security, and then we have someone from systems typically to join the team. And that's a really good balanced team. And so we all go through this team forming, storming, norming, performing. You've all heard that phrase. So all teams go through these phases. First time you get together, you're kind of nice. It's the honeymoon phase. But then when you start adding a little pressure, then you start fighting a little bit. Then you start figuring out you're using the tools how to work as a team. So that's the norming and performing. So that's how that whole cycle works. So that's another GE tool that I brought to the team. So that's our year model in action using our goals team. And again, this supports our annual goals. And we've done some pretty cool things with them. I've been very impressed with what, again, not my ideas, but their own. So let's talk about some case studies. Okay, this is, do y'all have on-call, weekend on-call services? Does everyone love doing that? No. Why? Well, that's your weekend, typically, and it's probably not your hospital. So this was our challenge, and so when we did the offsite, we said, what's one thing we could do to make this better? This was the #1 vote getter. They said, we hate on-call. Don't ask me to do it, I hate it. So I said, well, you're still gonna have to do it, but let's make it easier. So what we did, we said, well, what's the problem? I said, well, we had a really high turnover. I don't know if you all at your house, about 30%. We lost a lot of our old timers retiring, and some folks have left, but a lot of turnover. And along with that means that when you're on call and you're sent to the hospital, it's not your own hospital. It's like, where are my tools? They waste time looking for tools. So the solution was this concept called 5S. So I'll move over here and read it with you. So this comes from the Japanese Toyota production system, but it stands for sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. And so a lot of times we clean our shops, which means we sort it, but then we don't have any mechanism to sustain it, right? So we've borrowed some ideas from other locations, and we shared the successes. And this is one of them I'm really the most proud of, because this is at the shop level. So the quality teams were convened, and are your guys pack rats? Your folks pack rats? Ours are. And one of our technicians, a lead tech right there, the hospitals are throwing away the crash carts, so those the red boxes kind of things, getting brand new ones. And he said, I'd like to have a few of those for my tools. And so he did. He got a number of them. And then as our team convened, we were focusing on how to make the on-call process easier. And I said, well, what's the biggest problem about being on call? And they said, the #1 problem is we can't find our tools. So it was kind of like the right things met together, right? He said, well, I've got these carts. I think that'd be a really good idea if we could organize them in a way that are universal. Same kind of card for all hospitals. Doesn't matter which one you're at, so that you know which tools where you don't have to search for it. It's all right there. So that's what you said. This is our conference room, and we didn't talk about the ideas. I made it like a workshop. So I brought all the components in there, and we started working, and they were kind of blown away by that too. I think they thought this was going to be a facilitated meeting with flip charts. I said, no, we're going to actually sit down and do this. So we focused on the crash carts, improving tool access, standardizing. Believe me, that was the hardest thing, because each hospital said, well, we'd like to have the wrenches in the top drawer, and we'd like to have the accessories in the bottom drawer. And I said, can we agree, again, fist to five, can we agree to make the top drawer the same, the second and third? And they agreed, and they said, but the bottom drawer, let's make that unique to our hospital, because one hospital services babies and the other one services adults. And I said, that's actually a good idea, because now you can get some buy-in on that, right? So there's some compromise there. All right, so the cool thing, so I just, again, brought the crash carts in the conference room, and these guys aren't shy. They started ripping out the old stuff and getting them ready for the next process. And it was also neat to see the director involved. So we've got this stuff it's called Kaizen foam. If you Google it, comes in different thicknesses, but it has layers, and use a sharp X-Acto knife, but you can actually cut out the profile of the tool. And the guys really like that. And when I say guys, I mean people. I'm from grew up in Michigan, so we say guys. Supervisor involved. and then the entire quality team. You can see them. What they're doing there is they're laying out the tools, and then they're sort of saying, yeah, that makes the most sense. Let's go for it. And they standardize to that particular type. So here's some close-ups of the tools, and that was really neat to see the technicians make the decision as to which tools they want in these carts. You know, looking back, it seems so simplistic, but you know, it took a while for us to agree on anything. And we finally did, and that's the second drawer. And it's really neat to see them work together. They're from different hospitals, so you can see some real ownership buy-in coming to play. And for me, standardization. So this was the bottom drawer because every hospital had different monitors, so they decided to make that unique to their individual hospitals. And they went a little crazy. They got the label maker out here, so it actually says wrench, but you can tell it's the wrench. And the best part is, again, the ownership went up toward the end. In fact, one of the guys, which one was that? Well, this gentleman here said, we'd like to make a presentation. Can you help us with the PowerPoint? Yeah. So we had a Zoom call, and they went through how this is going to be organized. And they said, we're going to audit it, and we're going to put zip ties on these, just like the hospitals do. So when all the tools are in the proper place, they put a zip tie on it, which says it's all there. It's been checked. But as soon as you break that tab, your job is, you know, use the tool, but then you got to check it and then put the zip tie back on, so you leave it better for the next person, right? Very, very simple, but it worked. So from the payoffs, supports our cascading goals. That's the top one. It's a very great to see the engagement for solving this problem or on call. A quick solution. We did this in a couple of weeks. High buy-in. I think is very practical. I could talk about theory and 5S all day long, but they really got with it, and so it was really beneficial, gratifying to see that happen. I love to see the collaborative effort. We work as one team. The whole distinction between the layers of management sort of vanish when each of us has our own little board to figure out. And then it's tangible application of some of these concepts. So when I talk about 5S, they know what it means now. Before they were like, sign, short, sort, whatever. I said, no, you all did it. You'll follow the steps. You did it the right way. And it's standardized, but yet it was adaptable. So this gave us a chance to accommodate the need for standardization, yet being unique for the hospital. So I thought that was a good example of that. All right, so that was the first one. The next one, there was a show years ago called Extreme Makeover. Y'all remember that? Move That Bus or whatever it was. So we did a 5S Extreme Makeover Clinical Engineering Edition. This is one of our technicians who really took delight with this. Couldn't have done it without him, because once he got on board with it, he's unstoppable. And in fact, he started doing 5Ss at other locations. So here's what we did. So here's the problem. We always start with a problem. They said, we don't have enough room. Y'all, is that a common problem? We don't have enough space? Well, yeah, this is what we think our shops look like, and this is what they actually look like, right? They look familiar? It's not really that bad, but it's kind of the contrast. What you think it is and what it actually is may be miles apart. So we had an intern, Katya Kovitsenko. She's one of the brilliant engineers I've ever met. She's also now in med school and a Fulbright scholar. So she's got the whole deal, and she has this ability to work with people. So I said, well, why don't you do the 5S with these? Let's get a couple technicians, and I'll kind of guide you, but work with them. So she did the sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. And I'll walk you through what we did there. So this was the first thing they tackled. You see the tool cart with the 5S foam. They cut the little profiles to put all the tools in there. But she did more than that. Another nice, me and my sticky notes. It's very difficult when you have all kinds of equipment and parts laying around. You get kind of stuck. So I said, well, let's do this. Let's use 3 colors of the sticky notes and put green stickies of stuff that have to be there. Okay, and that's pretty easy. Now, yellow, if it doesn't have to be in front of you, but we want to store it somewhere. And then if it's broken, or if it's got cobwebs or dust on it, let's put a red sticky. And then if you want to, before you start moving stuff, leave those sticky notes on there and get the lead tech, make sure that person is on board with it, and then just leave it that way so the shop can kind of get used to it. My wife tried to organize my wood shop, and I about killed her because I don't like it there. So you got to get that buy-in. So you have to get some time for people to go, I might still need that, and you can have that conversation. But again, the 3-color approach works really, really well. And then once that's done, then you can start moving stuff out. So that's the first part of the 5S. Okay, so the other thing, the concept is we had to get rid of some monuments. So I don't know if you know that that's a fire door. Kind of embarrassing. I mean, we have other exits, but that was never, they just never even assumed it was an exit. And the other thing is some of the guys come over to this is the imaging shop, and there's not enough desks. So we actually discovered, oh, there's a desk there that you can actually sit at, and it's still kept that way. We did this 3 years ago, still that way. But the biggest thing was to finally just deal with all the junk that accumulated. That's what we call Main Street. That makes sense? Okay, and then Katya and one of our techs were kind of going through with the sticky notes and deciding. They also put in deciding what had to go, what had to stay, and they also put in place the floor tape. You know, you've seen like parking lots where you have stripes. That tells you don't put anything there. It'll get towed at your expense. So yeah, so this is what we call, this was where everything kind of came into the shop. So we call that Main Street. So the idea is keep Main Street clean, right? Trying to think what else. Oh, Katya was very gifted in this regard. I mean, these guys had MRIs to repair and things like that. So she'd say, well, they told me to come back and leave because they were busy. I said, that's fine. Just come back tomorrow, or ask them, hey, is there some things I can do? And they really got in a good rhythm where they could, she wasn't stopped all the time, but she also had to be cognizant that they had a job to do. So, but don't make that as an excuse that don't come back. Just say, come back tomorrow, come back later in the day. So it is very helpful to have someone like this, a coach that kind of keeps things moving. Okay, someone from the outside, because you have a different perspective. That makes sense? Okay, tool cabinets. This is the before, which still doesn't look that bad, but there's no labeling. So they got busy with their label makers and sorted stuff they didn't need, but everything has a label and a spot for it. So the catchphrase I've heard with 5S, a place for everything and everything in its place. Okay. All right, goof proof, that's another concept, making it so like before, as soon as you shut that door, what happens to the tools? They move, right? And it's not really easy to know what belongs there. So with those designated at 5S, yeah, the Kaizen foam, yeah, that's right away at a glance, right? You don't have to think about it, what belongs where. Ladders, do you have a problem with ladders? Yeah, they're like the elf on the shelf. They're everywhere. They just sort of like, how'd that get here? So it's constantly moving. So we went to Lowe's and just got some ladder hangers, and this whole wall here had I think that tool cabinet was there, and one of the technicians who wasn't involved directly, he cleaned up his area and said, well, why don't you put that over there, and that's a good spot for the ladder because it kind of fits the profile, right? And I thought, and it's still there. I thought that's wonderful. And that's just the other advantage of doing stuff like this. Now that we're part of the ISO auditing process, you want to take things that don't distract your eye. Like you see something like a ladder slanted or stuff laying all around, you start to look for other problems. So having a ladder in its proper place, and maybe even put the word ladder, the auditors come through, they go, nothing to see here, and they keep right on moving. And that's one of the other benefits of 5S. So yeah, that was a big problem because it's a big item there. This was a good one because every time the auditors would open the door, this is what they saw. So that doesn't look very well organized. So they were able to clean that up. And this is their break room. It'll also make your break room really look bad. Organizing what I call the warehouse. So we had more shelves than we needed, and we had parts that they were just in the boxes. Nobody even knew what they were. And we had hundreds of thousands of dollars of stuff, as you can imagine, that you don't even know what you have because no one, you order it and you don't use it and you put it away, but it's not labeled, so you don't know what it is. So that was an important part of that process. Organizing, so in the break room, they had a lot of consumable supplies, labels and stuff like that. And it was just sort of hodgepodge. So they organized it with the label makers and so on. Could we do more with this? We probably could, but this is an improvement over that as well. And I think the neat thing was watching the reaction to the rest of the shop. They were kind of like, what's going on here? And I don't think, it was just kind of like a whirlwind. We took over and started organizing it. So the payoff from the tech's perspective, it solves a nagging problem, clutter, right? And it also created space. It's amazing how much space we gained by doing this. We did the 5S process in phases, again, using the sticky notes to sort, get the buy-in, give the staff time to accept the change. Another technique I learned with the technicians is, has anyone ever heard of Marie Kondo? She's a guru of organization, Marie Kondo, and she has this phrase. She says, "Thank it for its usefulness and say goodbye to it." So I actually had one of the technicians, because I could tell they were getting a tight grip on it. I said, have you ever used this in the last year? No. Okay. Thank it for its usefulness and then say goodbye to it. And it's a funny thing with that is your brain releases endorphins like when you give gifts. Your brain hits the same kind of, they were actually feeling good about it. It's a weird psycho thing going on there, but it's true. So thank you for your usefulness, but I'm going to have to say goodbye now. Okay. This drives sustainability and accountability. This is the big thing, because we always talk about, I'm going to hold Mark accountable. Well, how can you hold me accountable if it's not clear what I'm supposed to do? So again, those 5S cutouts are pretty easy to hold accountable, right? You make it easy to do the right thing. That's another catchphrase we use. It supports our ISO auditing. So with our shops being more organized, we're less likely to see issues that have to be corrected. And that's good for me. So it's kind of self-serving, but I like that. Okay, so we started at the very frontline level, we went to department level, and this was one that was really cool. So I was talking about those kiosks as a Tenacor. That's where our prizes are. So I had never seen that before. So I was telling the guy that was showing it off, I said, well, we did this at our hospitals, but it wasn't so much the solution, it was the act, how did we get to the solution? And that's what I want to share with you. All right, so this is a real problem. So ever have 3 senior managers yell at you at once? I did. And they said, you're the quality guy, fix it. And so this is our situation with our monitors. So probably doesn't happen at your hospital, but we have a situation where if the monitor isn't working or if the accessories are missing, they go to the other unit and grab theirs. And so it starts this sort of, checkers game, right? Or if they don't have the monitor, they just submit a work ticket, say fix it. Well, we'd say no defect found, because it's the monitor's working fine. So it's the accessories that are either missing or broken. So the supply chain VP was my former boss, said, I am tired of my staff wasting time looking for parts, ordering parts for you guys. Okay, that's the first guy to yell at me. So that was a really good day. The next one, chief nursing officer who I'd worked with before, she says, my nurse managers hate you guys. What? Well, it's because we're wasting time ordering these doggone accessories. Why don't you guys do it? You're clinical engineering, you guys should manage it. And then the CE director says, I am tired of our techs wasting time with no defect found. So I really it's like a perfect storm. So I turned it on its head and I said, why don't we put this ear model in action and let's get the teams together and find out what's really going on, right? Because I didn't understand it at first what really was going on. So here was the problem. Patient monitor accessories, the cost had gone out of control. This is just one hospital. I'll take this back. This is all of our accessories. The most embarrassing part about this is I asked each of the finance directors of each hospital, how much are we spending on these accessories? They said, we really don't know. You'll have to ask the vendor. So I got the vendor and said, can you tell us how much you sold us over the last few years? And they tallied it up and said, yeah, $750,000. And I didn't know much about these accessories either. I said, are these like consumables? They said, no, they're supposed to last quite a while. You don't typically replace them, but you are, which is good. We enjoy the business. So that's the problem, right? That is a problem. So having the C-suite leaders of all three, from the 3 stakeholders involved, the only thing they said is, we want you to solve this quickly. We don't want this to be a forever project, and we know you've got this process of breaking down the problem into 3 chunks or whatever. So we trust you on this. And I said, well, I trust you. I need you to be at the kickoff, because what we'll do is we'll do our work, but we're accountable to you, but you're accountable to us to provide any kind of resources or break down barriers. And as long as we've got that understanding, I'm good to go. So I got that first, and they were more than willing to help us on their end. So a common quality tool is plan, do, check, act. That's kind of the cycle you go through. What we did, the Japanese call it go to the gemba, which means go to the workplace where the source is. So the first thing we did is we walked all the units. So we had 17 floors. Every floor had their own nurse managers managing these accessories. And so I did this. You see the guy in the center here? We did fist to 5. How do you think this process is working? He didn't hesitate. He went, this is not good. But we had just asked the manager of the unit, what do you think about the process, Shaw? This is great. So there's a disconnect, obviously, right? So we took that information and then we brought the teams together, and I had flip charts on all the walls. They came in, they're like, what the heck is this all about? And I did it on purpose because I want us to work through the process and work ourselves out of the room. But that's one of the flip charts we use, and we use a technique called SIPOC. And so we list all the suppliers, what are the inputs to the process, what are the processes, what are the outputs from it, and who are the customers. Again, this is a foreign language to them, so I had to give them some training on what we're trying to do as we went. And then when we got down the road on our second session, we focused a lot on getting buy-in on our solutions. And then the last thing we did was piloting. So what we did, this is a kind of a preview of the solution. We agreed that having 17 locations was not good because I was there after hours, and I watched one of the PCA coming. She's knocking on the manager's office. Of course, it's after 5, so the manager's not there. I said, what is it you're looking for? She says, well, I need to get one of these accessories, but my boss isn't here. Okay, that was a real problem. So what we did, what if we could have this in one location? Everyone did fist to 5. That's a great idea. Okay, so where are we going to have it? So this gentleman here, Frank, was at first, he was this. He was not on board at all. He did not want to change. But then once he sort of saw the vision, he was the one that helped us find the real estate to put this, I call it a foot locker, and it's got little glass doors in it, but it's one location. So we went from 17 locations down to 1. And that took a little bit of work to find, well, where are you going to put it that everyone can go to it. So that's part of the process. So walking it, we call it solutioning, getting the buy-in and then piloting the solution. That's what we did in those phases. That make sense? Okay. So sharing the results, you can see up in the right corner, that's the DMAIC process. So we actually created a PowerPoint with information, and we had packets on their desk, on their table, so they could kind of follow the process along with us. But the bottom line is that everyone did it differently. There was no standardization in how we manage this process, and that's probably the reason why we had over $750 million worth of accessories purchased over 3 years, which is ridiculous. So we wanted to explain that the process we had now was not working. And they were all going, oh, I had no idea. I thought my folder was perfect, so, but everyone did it differently. So there was no commonality in anything. Again, my cohort there, Katya, I said, can you help me? I need this is going to be a big one. I need someone who's got a better people skills than me to manage the crowd, because we're going to have some fights. I can predict it. And she has this wonderful disposition. She's very pleasant and she'll say, I'm just curious. That's a tell that she's trying to manage the conflict there. But I said, let's lay our conference room out so that we have the flip charts, our DMAIC process, and we'll walk them through the data. We'll give them the understanding of what's going on, and hopefully come up with a solution that's better than what we have today. So we had pre-arranged the flip charts of what we were trying to solve. We even gave them data packets, because I don't think anyone understood how much we were spending on accessories. We used post-it cards, post-it notes, cards, and markers to promote participation. Each person had their own marker. And they looked down like, what am I supposed to do with this? I said, we'll get there. So this was all new to them. This was really crazy stuff for some of these folks. We brainstormed with post-it notes. So again, one idea per post-it. That's hard for a nurse manager to do. They write really small and they want to put more details. I said, no, just a few words, please, per post-it note, so we can move the ideas around. Okay. We combined the ideas, and then we did that multi-vote. They really liked that process, because we generated lots of ideas, but we had to come up with the one that was the best. And then we also used that 4 block, as I shared with you earlier, because some of the ideas were really out there and would have been expensive, and we would have never gotten it done. But some of the ideas that came out were actually high impact, low cost, low effort. So we focused on that. I know this is an important thing. So if when you're going to bring people together, you're going to have conflict. And so I have 3 simple running rules, and we posted on the first flip chart. Number 1, everyone participates. So I'm trying to make eye contact, even the folks in the back. We want you all to participate, okay? That's number 1. Number 2, if everyone participates, you have to have respect for everyone, okay? So if you're dominating the conversation, here's a simple thing. Let's say Glenn is a talker, okay? He has a lot of experience, and the best thing you can do as a facilitator is just walk up. And what happens when you're talking too much? You tend to stop, right? See how that works? So, or if someone else is, you call their name. So what's your idea? Because there are people that are on the spectrum, right? They're the overly involved and the under involved, right? You want to moderate that and make sure that everyone participates. And what I did with the team is I explained, this is going to be different than most meetings you've ever experienced. So just be prepared for that. And then I talked about the, and we're going to be action focused. So a lot of times the nursing staff in particular had a lot of history and no one had ever asked them anything. And they use this as their opportunity to unload all problems. So I would say, okay, fist of 5, do we need any more discussion here? Because that's an important, and usually people would do that. And I would say the person was over talking. That person got the clue, oh, we're done. Okay, let's move on to the next phase. So use that. That's a great technique. So again, fist of 5. Fist means I'm not in the boat. And we had a few times where this happened. There was a few people that just did this, said, I can't support it. 5 means, yeah, I'm on board. I'm ready. Okay. So those are the kind of the 3 or 4 ideas that I think, if you take nothing else from today with your teams, they're really good tools. Fist of 5, ready to move on? Anyone want? I see it. I got to see it. Thank you. All right. So the next thing we did, has anyone ever done any process mapping at all? This is kind of a new thing for this industry, and we process map everything at GE. But bottom line is, I said, okay, let's just do a simple generic map. What would it take to get from the moment that you discover that the accessory is bad, defective or what, or missing? What's the next step? Okay, and then you do that. Okay, then what happens? And then you sort of do it at a very, very high level. This was a very simple. So the first thing is you go get the accessory and you say, is it there or not? If it's not, then you order it. And if it's not there, you pull it from stock, you order accessory, and then you receive the accessory, and then you put it back in storage. So we took and we said, yeah, that looks like a pretty good process flow. Then we said, okay, now what's the current process look like? That's the current process. You see the difference? Which ones would you choose? This is your eye doctor. 1 or 2? 1? I'll do it again. 1, 2. Okay, so this uncovered all kinds of complexity because everyone had their own piece of the puzzle, but no one knew it. So we were very disjointed. And actually, this is pretty straightforward. I've seen complicated. I did one in an ER that was 98 steps. It filled an entire wall. It was so crazy. But anyway, so the goal was to get to this. As I said, if we can agree to come up with a way that we can work like this, I think we all agree this is a better process. And they kind of got it, said, yeah, we think so, but we didn't know how to get there. So next thing we did, I said, well, let's take those steps and put them down in order. So identify the non-function, accessories damaged, you check the inventory, you order new accessory, you receive the accessory, you distribute it, and you install it. That's pretty straightforward, right? Even I could figure that out. So, and then we went across the top and said, okay, right now anyone can do these. So we had the PCAs and RNs, the techs, the nurse managers, and supply chain. And then we said, okay, who is the best to do it? That was that kind of the breakthrough. It says, well, the best person to identify that it's broken is probably the PCA. Does that make sense? The best person to assess it's damaged is probably the PCA. How about assessing inventory? Well, the inventory part kind of makes sense to be supply chain. So we said, yeah, that's actually a good idea. And then installing accessory, we think the nurse can do that. We don't have to have, look who's missing from this. This is beautiful because they told me initially, we want you to manage it. We want you to buy it. We want you to install it. And I didn't say no, but I said, we'll see. Okay. That's my mom's catchphrase. That's her way of saying no, but not now. It's we'll see. So the beauty of it, so we're out of the process. We focus on what we're supposed to do, which is the monitor itself, right? Nurse managers, they're out of the loop because they don't have to waste their time from managing the unit because the best person can do this, okay? And so I did fist to 5, and everyone was on, the nurses loved it, we loved it. Who do you think didn't like it? Supply chain. And it was really kind of an awkward meeting because we had already, that individual missed the previous meeting. So we worked out this process without him. And I said, why don't we take a break here? And everyone left, and I pulled him back except you. I said, here's where I am with you. I said, I'm not in the boat with you. He says, and I kind of got myself together, and I said, okay, what would it take to get you in the boat? He said, well, number one, I don't have the staff to do it. I need to make someone, this is pretty high level stuff, the management part. And I said, let's go talk to one of our champions, a CNO, and see what she says. So he goes, okay, I'm on board. Went to her, and before he finished the sentence, she said, what are you doing here? She says, what do I need to do to make this happen? And he said, he explained, he says, yeah, you do whatever, change you need to make for your staff to make this happen. That's all he needed. Okay. But that was just the first part. So then he was like, well, okay, now that I'm on board, he was back on board again. Now we had to come up with a way to manage it. So the way it works now, this is on the 5th floor, and we have Foot Lockers there, and it's a supermarket, right? And every day they have a little list, and they go through there and they check, which ones need to be replaced. Do you remember the 5S cart, the zip tie? So what we did is we put zip ties on all these drawers. What does this zip tie tell you? It's full. No one's even opened it, right? It's all good. So what we found out is most of the time they were zip tied, and the nurses knew this because they knew crash carts. So again, you got to speak their language. That was kind of the breakthrough there. And then the supply chain has their own warehouse. So what they were doing was they'd open up the closet, they'd look to see for any zip ties, and they'd look to see which one, where it's located, and go back and get them. And we agreed five components, and then restock it. So it's kind of like supermarket and warehouse. Does that make sense? Very low tech, a high buy-in, and actually I didn't. The guy that was not in the boat, he was the one that was the fist. He found this somewhere. I don't know, like one of those, what kind of magazine, like Granger's or something like that. Or maybe he saw it in the hospital. Well, actually, he had that, so that's probably where he got the inspiration. So I'm going to show you another thing about visual management that we did, because the other problem was the nurses, PCAs would often get the wrong accessory, right? It's kind of easy to do. They look alike, right? They're wires. So we said, well, how can we make this goof-proof? And I'll walk you through that in the next slide here. Okay. Oh, this was kind of cool. I won't show the video here, but one of the other challenges was some of the nurse managers said, well, we don't know if we're going to keep control of these accessories. How do we keep control from hoarding? And the supply chain manager, really on a really nice turnaround story, he said, well, you know what? Let's put a badge access there, and there's also a camera. So badge access plus camera. If I see someone walking out with, bundles of these, I know who it is, and I know where they live, and I'll find them. So he was early on board with it, but inside the closet, it's an old closet, it was not used. Let me show you some of the things I thought were kind of cool here. So number one, you see the zip tie. That's a signal that says don't worry about this one. But then we also put what I call a golden sample. One of the other problems was they take the very last one, and then no one knew what it was. So we taped one on the inside of the glass door, so if a nurse comes in, then they can actually match up the physical sample with what's in that cabinet. So that's the golden sample. And then each department speaks different languages. So 5J6 is that's the supply chain language. That's the location where they pull from. So we don't know what that means, but we put that on there. And then nursing, they call it, well, this is a 5-lead EKG trunk. So that's their language. So again, we tried to make it so that everyone could understand what that particular part is. Okay. So we got the zip tie, the golden sample. We have the label that the warehouse uses, and then we have what Philips uses to communicate what that part is when they go to reorder it. Okay. Yeah, as I said earlier, the badge reader plus a camera kind of control the hoarding that they were afraid of. All right, so what will you take back? I think that it's important that your techs drive this. You have to teach them, but I think there's always that 10, 20% of the gung hos that will catch on right away, and they can motivate others. Because we all watch. There's always someone that says, "Well, I'll do that if you do it first," right? So these two gentlemen here and Katya were really the first to try this out. And I always say this. I said, now that we've made this improvement, would you go back to the other way? And no way. We're going to keep it this way. So I always give them that option. You can always go back to the cluster that was there before, or you can maintain this. This is one of the folks who's been promoted. She asked me after the quality conference, she said, she's a very shy individual. She said, can you 5S my desk? And I said, I won't 5S, but I'll show you, I'll be there to give you encouragement. And I said, all I need from you is to get a dumpster, one of those little big tubs. And she had a hard time starting. I said, I told her the Murray condo. I said, that I just started picking stuff off her desk. I said, have you used this in a while? She goes, oh no, I might though. All right, well, if you might use it, then maybe you could put it in your cabinets, but let's label it. So she organized her documentation in one cabinet, her lunch, and her tools, and she put a sign. And it's really curious because one of the most outspoken antis of this is now a lead tech. She was like, I'm not doing that crap. But she was like, it made her life so much easier. She actually decorated her little daisies. She personalized it. It actually made it kind of very pleasant to be in her workspace, and she really enjoyed it. And you could tell it took the stress off her. She was just like more relaxed about things because she wasn't trying to fumble through all her stuff to find her things. So it does have that capacity. So you can take it at the department level, at the individual level. Find one person who's willing to try it out, and then you'll be amazed. Someone else is going to see that, and it has that ripple effect, right? So I really do believe in this process. I hope this has been helpful. 5S, I'm a real believer in it. It really helps. So I'm going to open up for any questions or comments about the processes. So we did it at multiple levels: department, inter-department, and at the personal level. So hopefully you'll get something from one of those three situations. I got two. I got three. You first, Glenn. Yeah. Yes. Right. So the question was, the comment was, when you can tie it to the dollar. Yeah. You can also another metric I've used is square footage. So if you got no square footage and you gain square footage, there you could probably put a dollar value on that. That's kind of soft savings. 5S is really more for making it easier for you, right? But if you can tie dollar value to it, yeah, I think that's even better. And then we've used that a lot because people start to go, oh, there's real money with this. Yes, indeed. Because we have stuff in boxes. The previous director, we did a 5S at his shop, and he had no idea what it was. I said, well, let's just open it up. And he goes, oh, that's where they went. And I said, how much is that? He says, well, that's probably $500,000 right there. I went, what? And we don't use them anymore. Well, what do you do with them? Well, we have to scrap them, or we have to try to get credit for it. So yeah, this is a good exercise. You'd be amazed at what stuff gets squandered and put where you don't want it. Okay, thanks, Glenn. Two questions, even better. Yeah, so the question was, because this is a common problem with us as well, about pump management. We've not used the 5S for that, but we've used some statistics to say how many pumps should you have, working with the nursing staff. But it's a real problem. That's a toughie. I think that's a universal toughie. I wish I could have a good answer. I'm going to work on that, but I don't have a. Yeah, go ahead, Glenn. Yeah. Yeah, we right. Yeah, we actually had an external efficiency department that I came from try to work on that, and they sort of kind of, hate to say, they sort of gave up because the discipline has to exist at the nursing level. But this could work. I think you could have some kind of like slots or designated areas, like the floor markings of what where the pump should go when they're done. So yeah, you could do that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So the question was about working cross hospital and standardization. So my answer, simple answer, is standardize where you can, customize where you have to. So the example of that, the leads, or I'm sorry, the crash carts, because I was like, we're not going to deviate. We're going to make the same crash carts for all. And they wanted to string me up. And I said, okay, what is it that how can we standardize the most, and what do we have to flex on a little bit? And they explained to me, hey, Mark, there's Norton Children's Hospital downtown, and then there's also, the heart surgery hospital. So there's different clientele, different things. I said, okay, but what can we agree on? Can we, do our best to standardize? Because it's actually better if you can, but you also have to, flex where you can. But the other point I want to make is the importance of piloting, having a pilot location. So we had the one hospital, which is our biggest hospital, be the first place we did the accessories management. And then we brought the other hospitals over to see it. And that helps buy-in. We said, because we were originally going to do it across the board, and I think we had the presence of mind to say, let's get it working one place, and then get because the other thing that happened, I mentioned his name, Frank. He was not on board at all. Once he became on board, that if you could take someone's passion and direct it in the positive, he was still passionate. He's like our best salesman, and he's brought people. I mean, I said, hey, we want to give a tour of your idea. Hey, yeah, I'll drop everything and get over this and show it off. He's very proud of it. So the pilot ideas is how you can overcome that process, and then you can test it. Because sometimes when you pilot it, you find things that didn't work, and you say, well, what can we got to fix it. You don't cancel the program, but use the pilot to test it and then come up with solutions to make it work better. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the green eggs and ham. Can you try it? Or I had a friend who say, "How's that working for you?" And that usually shuts them up. Or I say, "Well, let's try it, and then if it doesn't work, we're gonna make it so." At GE, when I worked there, we had to make reverse compatibility. So if we changed a filter or you had to be able to go back to the old way if you had to. So just give them that option. Say, look, if it doesn't work, but we want to test it for enough time to make it work. But if it doesn't, you can always go back, right? But ask them to try it out. Yeah, yeah, that's a great technique. Yeah. In the back there, is someone that question? Or maybe it's over here. Yes. Well, thank you. Yeah. So yeah, the question is using Fistify, which it's a great tool. I've been using it for 30 years. It's the best thing I've ever found. So have a catchphrase. So I always say, so if I have someone to Fist, I say, okay. Or if I have, it's always good to have diversity in opinion. So if someone's a 5 and someone's a 2, I'll say, why did you say a 2? And why did you say 5? Because maybe they were closer than you thought, but they sort of roll their eyes like my teenagers used to do. I'd say, okay, what would it take to get you in the boat? Because that's what that means. I'm not on board. Okay, it's usually something minor. Okay, and I say, okay, if we do that, let's say, here's an example I've used when I've taught this before, is we're going to have pizza for lunch, and it's pepperoni pizza. We fist of 5, and usually in an audience there's one person who's vegan. And I say, okay, what it would take to get you on board? He says, well, could we have a cheese pizza? Then I test that solution with everybody. I say, we're going to have pepperoni pizza and a cheese offering, fist of 5, and usually that person who was a fist will do this. They're on board. They're not maybe fully, but they're just getting them to a 1. Or maybe you can say, what would it take you to just get to 1? So if you can use that phrase, I think that'll help. Because we're not, people aren't obstinate. They have not knowledge that you're not aware of. That's usually what it is. Does it mark you might not be aware, but if we do this is the downside to that. And just like the supply chain manager, he was on board with the idea until it came down to his team doing most of the work. That's where he kind of, because he realized the constraint was there. So I said, okay, I actually use that phrase. I said, what would it take to get you in the boat? He says, well, if I can get this individual a manager level role, I think, he said, I think I can, I can be on board with it. And so that's what we did. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. Yep. But yeah, I like the 3 rules. Hey, everyone participates, respect everyone, and it's action bias. If you can stay focused on that, I think you'll find this is difficult because you've got people who don't want to change. So you want, and yet we need to. I don't know if your hospital's like ours. We're facing all kinds of cost pressure. We don't have enough staff. We don't have a space. All those constraints are there, and so these kind of tools will help you do more with the same. Right? We've heard the phrase "do more with less." We just want to do more with what we have and use it more effectively. So yeah, but again, if you want to find out more about Lean Six Sigma, there's Amy has a course for it that I've taught that course. It's just an overview, but it gets you introduced to that. I've got one coming up in November. So if you want to peruse the catalog there, or just shoot me an email. I taught it last year, well received. People kind of go, oh, I can start to use this. So I would highly recommend that. Find out more about that. All right. I think the last slide is my contact information. Let's see. Yeah. There's my cell address. Shoot me a text. I always like to keep up with you all. We got so much to teach each other. So there it is right there. mcooksey6@gmail.com. Yes, sir.